Okay, let's continue our journey through, excuse me a second, through Ed Psych. This short video will be about lecture on Ausubel, David Ausubel. David Ausubel is a phenomenal psychologist. He's written, I don't know, over 1,000 articles, a couple of books. He's not very well known, basically, even though he's probably one of America's most prestigious psychologists, for basically two reasons. One, he's a terrible writer. Uh, if you have insomnia, you know, get one of his books out of the library, and if you can read more than 4 pages without falling asleep, you're the next Marvel superhero. Uh, and the second thing is he's terrible to work with. He came to the University of Florida for a guest semester, and he ticked off the graduate students, including me, in about 2 days. The only good thing was his wife Elizabeth would come by with cookies and say, "Oh, David, I really mean that. You got to get used to him." Blah blah blah. But anyway, he's not easy to work with. But let's get back to the lecture. David Ausubel believes in expository learning or receptive learning. Expository learning is where the teacher gives the information in final form. Like I can say, "Here's what I want you to know," and you can decide whether you want to study it or not. Or sometimes called receptive learning, like you're a big sponge and we're pouring the information on and you're soaking it up. David Ausubel believes that expository learning is the best way to learn meaningful verbal meaningful verbal learning. Now let's break that down, because on the test I break down the definition. Meaningful means it has value to the learner. David Ausubel says if it has value to the learner, you will listen to a lecture and you'll be interested in knowing the results because it's meaningful, it's important to you. We have meaning, which means you have a cognitive map, and we have meaningful, which means it has value or value or important to the learner. Verbal is where I'll catch some of you on the test, because verbal is the most common way of doing it. Me telling you the answer. But in definition, Ausubel believes that verbal is any type of communication, written, sign language, facial expressions, so forth. Verbal means that you're able to tell somebody else the information. So if we grab somebody walking down the hall, well, there's nobody walking down the hall because nobody on the third floor, but if, say, somebody's walking past your door, your bedroom door at home, hopefully you know them, stranger, call the police. But anyway, if you can explain Ausubel to them, then Ausubel says you know it. So meaningful verbal learning has value and it has to be communicated. If you can't communicate it, according to Ausubel, you don't know it. So when you say to me, "Oh, Julian, I have the answers on the tip of my tongue," we stick it on your tongue, we don't see it, then you don't know it. So when I ask the test on verbal means communication, not just talking. Because some of you know sign language, some of you can write. You know, when I say, "Are you upset?" and you give me a terrible look, I know you are. So anyway, communication. Now, Oswald believes that uh, expository learning is the best way because we can get a lot of information in a short period of time. But this is another list, and people confuse this list with some others. You've got to keep these lists separated. There's 3 complaints about expository learning. And one of them is that the students are passive. And I've seen you in class, some of you are almost in comatose. You're not doing anything, you're just listening, you're not active. So, but Ausubel says that's not important, because if it's meaningful to you, you're actively listening. The second thing is it stifles creativity, because I'm telling you what I want you to learn, therefore you're not generating it internally. This is why we have a creative project to kind of reinforce that creativity part of you. But so students are passive, it stifles creativity, and it's based on rote learning. And boy, this chapter is on rote learning, because you're going to learn all these lists, and then as soon as the test is over, you're going to forget most of it. But Ausubel keeps on coming back and says, no, if expository learning is taught correctly, it's the best form. If it's taught poorly, yes, these are drawbacks. But if it's taught correctly, it's the best way to teach. Now, there's 4 terms that I want you to know based on Ausubelian theory. One is discriminability. Discriminate, be able to tell the difference between two stimuli. Um, Ausubel believes that you should, when you teach material, uh, make sure it's discriminated. Make sure the students can tell the difference between the two. So, I mean, on the oral test, or something you still have to take, you're going to confuse admitted and elicited behavior because we didn't discriminate them well enough to know the difference of the two. The second thing is readiness, and that's an easy term. That's an easy 2 points. Readiness to Ausubel means you are ready to learn. If you're not ready to learn, you're not going to learn. The fourth term is for Ausubel is megacognition. And unfortunately, we don't have, I did some neat exercises on this in class, but of course we don't have that. Megacognition, this is going to sound weird, definition, is knowing what you don't know. It's knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. And this is important for students because you should be studying stuff you don't know. Don't study the stuff you already know. So a very smart, intelligent person knows some of the stuff that they don't know. A person who's not intelligent thinks they know everything, or they're not aware of what they don't know. So metacognition is the ability to know what you know and what you don't know. And this is very helpful for students. And the last thing about Ausubel is Ausubel believes in expository learning or receptive learning. However, even Ausubel says it is more effective after the age of 11 or 12. Before that, he said discovery approach is the best for laying a foundation. So he kind of agrees with Bruner up to a point, but after that he said, we don't have time because by the time you get to 4th or 5th grade, we don't have time for you to discover, so we need to go to expository learning. So that's the end of the chapter. So I'm going to have one more video because we're going to do it in class based on that video. And I'm going to do that a little later when it gets closer to that chapter on memory. So that's it. So this is the last video for EdPsych. So hope you enjoyed some of them. But most important, I hope you learned something. That's the key. Whether you enjoyed it or not, it's not that important. But actually learn something, meaningful verbal learning. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.